and we can get started. So, Mr. Coyne, you just rescued the quorum. Thank you.
Well, I was trying to get back from the restaurant that we just ate at. It was really good. And so I got to get up to my meeting. And so then it wouldn't work with iPads. I ended up, and then in the middle of it, Brian was harassing me. But
Okay, let's call this to order at 4:35, and why don't you start us out, Mr. Coyne, with roll call.
Dave Coyne, Jennison Beach, Florida, by way of Union Township.
Cheryl Hunter, Naples, Florida, Collier County.
Martin Fig, by the way, Happy New Year, everyone. In Mount Pleasant, Union Township, Isabella County, Michigan.
Ryan Milkey, Union Township, Isabella County, Michigan.
Bacon, present, Union Township.
Tom Keequam, present, Union Township, Isabella County. I believe that's everybody. So moving on to item 3 of the agenda, the approval of the agenda tonight.
I make a motion that we, pardon me?
Oh, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the agenda for tonight's meeting, January 19th, 2021.
Support.
Who was the support?
Milkey.
Motion by Fig, support by Milkey to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. And the motion is approved. The agenda is approved. Moving on to item 4, approval of meeting minutes from December 15th.
Bacon will make a motion to approve the minutes.
Coyne will second. Or support.
Motion by Mr. Bacon, support by Mr. Coyne to approve the December 15th meeting minutes. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. And motion's carried unanimously for the approval of the minutes. Item 5, presentations. What do you have there, Rodney?
We don't have any presentations tonight.
Item 6, public comment. Do we have anybody in the galley?
We do not have any members of the general public here tonight.
Moving on to item 7, reports. 7A, accounts payable. Please start us out.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Good. I've been having some technical difficulties here today from home, so I was a little concerned. Okay, I've got the East EDA checking report in front of me, and I'll review that for your approval. We have 2 payments to Consumers Energy. The first payment was on December 30th for $3,043.77. And then the second payment was on January 15th for $3,153.75. We have a payment to Outreach of Mid-Michigan for $4,500. This is for the new banners that will go up in 2021. And then we have a payment to Black Electric for $384.04. This was to replace some fuses to the lighting on Pickard when the Christmas decorations were up. And then we have a payment to CIB Planning for $1,885.75. And this is for some of the work they've done on the development and TIF plan update. And then we have a payment to MMI, the monthly payment for December, for cleanup around the park benches and the grounds on the Pickard corridor. Or that's for $406.50. So we have a total accounts payable for the East DDA of $13,373.81. And does anybody have any questions on that?
Hearing no questions, can I get a motion to approve the payables for the East DDA, please?
Sure, I'd like to move that we pay the payables as presented for the East DDA.
I'll support. Point.
I have a motion by Fig, support by Coin to approve the East DDA payables check register. Hearing no questions, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. And the motion is approved. Want to continue with the West DDA, Sherry, please?
Sure. Okay, we just have one check going out for the West DDA, and that is to CIB Planning for the same amount, the $1,885.75. That's for the work that they've done so far on the West DDA development and TIF plan update. Just the one check.
Make a motion that we approve the payments as presented for the West DDA.
I second that. Did they hear me? Can you hear me?
They heard you. I heard you.
Yes. I say, hearing no questions, we have a motion by Fig, support by Hunter to approve the West DDA check register. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. And the motion is approved.
Okay,
Want to continue with the financials?
Yep, moving on to the East DDA financials. We have, this is your report for the revenues and expenditures as of the end of 2020, 12/31/2020. And as you can see, the revenues are about 100% of the budget. And total expenditures are approximately 87% of the total budget. I'm not really expecting that there's too many other postings here for December. There may be an invoice that comes through a little later, but for the most part, these are your final numbers for 2020, unaudited, of course. These will be audited in April. And then moving on to the balance sheet for the East DDA. If you take a look at that report, you can see that there's approximately $1.6 million in cash. And your ending fund balance net of revenues versus expenditures is about 1.6 million. Are there any questions on the East DDA?
Jerry, were the expenditures less because we didn't have some expenses that were planned, or was it just some savings that we were able to achieve?
Well, when we put the budgets together, you know, we're not supposed to go over budget at all, ever, according to state law. And so when we budget with a little cushion in the expenditure area. And so it can be normal to have be 87% of budget. That's much better than going over budget in
Okay.
any area.
Okay, well done.
It's not, yeah, I wouldn't be concerned about that at all.
Thank you.
But thank you for the question. And I'll go ahead and I'll move on to the West DDA, the revenue and expenditure report. The revenues there are all posted and we're at about 100% of the budget. And then in the expenditure area, in the total expenditures, we're at about 92% of the budget. And then that's looking pretty good. And all of our, as far as I know, everything's been posted in those areas as well. And then moving on to the balance sheet for the West DDA. You can see that there are total assets, which really consists of cash of $1.2 million. And then the ending fund balance net of revenues and expenditures is about $1.2 million. So all in all, a very healthy, stable financial report here for the East and the West DDA. Do you have any questions on the West DDA? If not, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to present these to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. Let the record show the financials for the East and the West DDA were received, presented, and filed. And just for your update, included 7C on the agenda, the board member matrix. Just want to keep an eye on your expiration. And moving on to item 8, new business. Everything there, Rodney?
Nothing new under for this meeting under new business. No.
Okay, let's jump into 9, the pending business. The East and West DDA District Development Tax Increment Financing Plans update, please.
So I will at this point turn the time over to Carmen and to Elena from CIB Planning.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us on today. So just jumping right into it, the last meeting that we presented on was on December 15th. And at the end of that meeting, you were able to speak with Justin Sprague, our colleague. And I believe he answered some of the questions at the tail end of that. And next steps were decided upon, which was to put together a survey for the East and West DDA districts. and all the business owners that exist in those areas, to ask them what their preferred communication, communication preferences were with regard to kind of format and platform. So I believe you guys probably have a memo and another Word document with some questions. I think there are 13 of them at this time. So I would like to use this time to first maybe talk a little bit more about the context of this and then kind of launch right into the questions if that works for you all. What I want to do is just find out from this group some feedback to find out if there are ways we should be revising these questions, adding questions if we believe there needs to be some additional information provided from the business owners, and so forth. So other couple of things to think about while we kind of walk through these questions. We're going to be using the results of the survey to do a couple of things. Obviously, find out how these people like to be contacted, how often, where, when, that type of thing, and also engage them in a conversation to let them know that we're doing this project and that we need their feedback on some projects with regard to those two districts. At this point, we've talked about doing two separate surveys, one for East, one for West. And we can discuss the pros and cons to that as well tonight. Or we can just say, let's do two. But if that's an item of discussion, we can definitely hit on that. I'd also like to discuss maybe a goal range of responses we'd like to shoot for. We don't necessarily have to figure a number this evening, but maybe just keep that as a thought or to-do list item for the next time we meet, or you can even provide feedback via email on that. So that, and then also, we also want to talk about dissemination. So we want to talk about how we want to get the survey out, and some ideas around that. So without further ado, I think what I'll probably do, if it makes sense for everybody, to go ahead and share my screen. And then that way we can walk through those questions. Does that work for you guys? Okay, perfect. And so I'm gonna go ahead and just ask you guys to jump in at any point. I'm gonna go ahead and take notes directly on this sheet. And then we can, identify some areas if needed for revision. There might be some questions we need to split into two, depending on how you feel. So first, we've got the intro text. We can probably walk through that a little bit later, but you guys can provide some insight into that. It's just basically letting folks know the aim for the survey, and just that we want their insight. So first of all, we want to find out if they're a business owner or principal within the East EDA district. Now, keep in mind that this is kind of the template that we're using. We will of course change the language for West EDA and potentially change some of the questions with regards to projects specific to the West District. But I'm starting with East just to simplify matters. So then we want to find out what their contact information is here. The one thought I have, and if you guys, I'm not sure if I can see raising hands, so just go ahead and interrupt or speak up. But the one thing I would say maybe for number 2 to add to this is business name. We would probably have first, last name, and business name. That's one thought I had on this question here. Or company name.
I think that definitely is a good addition.
Yeah.
To have the company name there.
Okay. I believe that's probably good. That provides enough information for contacting. So please mark any of the following methods of communication from Union Township that you have interacted with in the past year. So these are basically what's currently in existence, potentially, with regard to communication formats through the EDA board. So somebody can attend a public meeting, public access TV or MAC TV, a direct mail piece, phone call, public notice in the newspaper, YouTube channel for video on demand, email, and website. Can you guys think of anything that might be missing from this list?
Elena, under the attendance at a public meeting, we might want to put in parentheses after that, maybe or Zoom meeting, since we're coming up on a year since the lockdown first took place, and most meetings have been held virtually, unless you know, you folks on the board know something we don't know.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I think we last met in person in January, I think.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
Yeah.
So the next question is a ranking
So,
question.
I'm
Oh, sorry,
I'm
go
gonna
ahead.
jump in.
Yep.
I was just looking at the phone call, email, my thought process being that one interaction could be, you know, that the township itself, whether to be a staff member or an elected official, reach out. And I think phone call and email largely cover that, but there is also direct contact too.
Like face to face you're talking about?
Yeah, and I
Okay.
realized this past year, maybe that might have been a little tough, but you know, it does happen from time to time, even in COVID. So
Mhm.
you might just want to put down direct face-to-face contact or something like that.
Okay.
Mask to mask.
Yeah.
There we go.
Mask. Okay. Got it. All right, so the next one's a ranking question. Please rank the following Union Township EDA methods of communication, 1 being your least favorite and 10 being your most favorite means of communication. So basically, this is kind of that preference question as to how they would prefer to be contacted. So I think what we would probably want to do is copy paste the direct face-to-face in this one as well. And then please choose the top 3 channels of communication that would make you more likely to engage with the township. So this is kind of future thinking. Maybe they receive a personal email, a letter in the mail, an invitation to a Facebook group, video on YouTube, read something on the website, that phone call from the EDA, and that visit from the EDA or other. So the other would be open-ended and we'll see those responses. Is there anything here that you guys think should be added? Okay, good. Social media sites where you have an account. This is the list here. My one feedback is that Parler no longer is available for download on Google Play or the iStore app. I think that's what the Apple iStore, Apple iPhone app. I don't have an Apple, it's obvious. I have a Samsung. So yeah, it's not available there. And Amazon Web Services also deplatformed, I think is the right term for Parler. Folks with an existing Parler account can actually access their account through their website. But that is one just to be aware of. And it's also, I know, a politically charged social media account right now. So just keeping that in mind, if we're going to be sending this to the newspaper, we just want to be aware of that.
Should we include it then, or should we not include it?
It's politically charged to include it. It's politically charged not to include it. You know, because so my thought would be is to leave it on there. And as you said, right now, essentially, it's not active. I know the company wants to be active again, but it just seems to me like it's best to just let it lie on let it be in the question, but rather than to take it out.
When it comes back, it'll be back.
Yeah, I would expect that it will come back. Certainly, the CEO of the company has indicated that they're going to come back.
Right. Okay, so I will go ahead and leave that for now. Then would you like to receive text or email messages? So I think this could potentially be broken up into 2 questions now that I look at it with a fresh set of eyes this evening. Would you like to receive text messages or text message reminders from Union Township about news or upcoming events? And then would you like to receive email message reminders? because those are quite different. So I might recommend let's go ahead and break those up. The question or the survey is only 13 questions. It shouldn't take more than, I would say, 8 to 10 minutes. So I think adding this additional question wouldn't negatively impact our response rate.
Right.
Let's just do this.
Is there a number that you find is a little over the number of questions that tend to get filled out? Is that becomes too many questions?
It's actually less about the number of questions. It's kind of a mix between the two. So yeah, if you see a survey that's going to be 20 plus questions, people are going to hesitate a little there. However, it's when you have those complex questions with 13 rankings and 6 across, and you can only rank in a certain order. It's when people sort of get barraged or sort of there's a lot of complexity to a question, and then there are a series of those complex questions. That's when you see the completion rate drop. So I would say with these are pretty direct questions. The only ranking questions up to this point is number 4. We have another one further down, but I don't think people will be bogged down with the complexity of the questions at all. So I think we're fine at this point. Let me see. Okay. All right. I'll fix that in a minute, make sure that looks good. So, of course, the options, yes, but only if I opt in, yes, maybe no. And then we want to ask about the timing, frequency. So once every 2 weeks, once a month, once a quarter, once a year. I didn't make a frequency more than once every 2 weeks and further than once a year. So if there is feedback that we should maybe say once every week, that's fine. I just thought it's probably more likely it would be about that time frame.
Okay.
And then number 9, this is going to be an open-ended question. Looking over the horizon just a bit, what do you see as the most important local issue or concern for your business or industry over the next 3 to 5 years? So we'll see some good responses here, I believe. I can make that mandatory, so people have to say something. If they just want to zoom through the survey, they'll probably just put an NA or no or yes or something like that. But this is a good insight type of question. And then this is the ranking question. Again, I think we're going to be just fine. There's only one, and it's going to be laid out in such a way where you can see that at the top, you're going to have 1 very important, fairly important, neutral, fairly unimportant, and very unimportant. People are pretty used to seeing that type of scale in a survey, so I think we're going to be okay here. These 13 key topics. So I think what we'd like to see from you guys is just to let us know, is there anything here that should be removed, added, or revised?
When I was looking through it, you have such things as public transportation, public services, road quality, but I didn't see public works. And my thoughts there was, basic infrastructure as far as water and sewer.
Okay. Good.
Possibly fiber. Although that's not a public utility here.
But broadband internet as a category could certainly be an additional line item.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable.
Mhm.
Would you do broadband internet instead of fiber optics or in addition to?
Probably in place of.
Yeah, it's I think broadband is broader than fiber is a specific technology to bring broadband.
I'm wondering, Elena, if there's a number of topics there, fairly important and neutral and very important. I'm just wondering if we could get more specific, especially since we're using the 1 to 10 rating already.
Mhm.
And you could be a little more discerning as opposed to having a big list of very importance and a big list of very unimportance. And maybe that you could start to differentiate some of it by detailing it on a 1 to 10. Especially since we're already using the 1 to 10 earlier.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Yep. The one thing I will say about the survey, the online survey system that we use, when we have this scale here, we have a weighted importance or an average. It's called a weighted importance, actually, is what it is. And the lower the number, the higher the importance. So you'll see sort of like a 1.3, 1.5. You'll see a scale from basically 1 to 3 and fractions thereof. And the lower the number, the more important. So the way that we do it with this type of question is that weighted average. However, with the ranking, I'll have to look and see exactly how that will work within the analysis feature. But I think that we can probably have something similar to that. So it's just easier for you guys to see, okay, this is, the top most important to everybody, and on and on. So I'll get back to you guys on that, but I think we can probably have some sort of analytic tool where we can quickly identify, the 3 most important.
I see number 10 as a really important question
Mhm.
of the survey so far. So
Okay, yeah.
I'm glad you've included so many things in there, and I think it's going to be very revealing. So
So is
that's-
there anything else that you guys think should be added to this list at this point?
Did you get the broadband internet? Yeah, there it is. Okay.
And you guys can always come back to me and let me know if there's something that comes up and you think of it later. Just shoot us an email or call us. Okay, so 11, with the decrease in retailers as a result of online shopping, we may see less demand for traditional retail buildings along Pickard Road in the East EDA district. So just a little note here, for the West EDA district, this is going to be a little bit of a different question, of course. Would you be willing to consider different land uses along Pickard Road, such as light industrial or research and development, if they are located in high quality buildings with no outdoor signage?
Storage.
Yes.
Signage or storage?
I'm sorry.
It's a storage. Number
Outdoor
11,
storage, you said signage, Elena.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did say signage. I meant storage. Thanks for catching that. I didn't even know I meant to, I didn't even know I said signage there. Okay, yeah, so storage. It's a long question, but I think it's a good one, obviously. So if you guys have any feedback on that one, let me know.
Is it, I think the question really is going after the different land uses. Would it be worth saying, would you be willing to consider different land uses or mixed uses along Pickard Road? Because mixed use also is a bit different as well. And we're seeing that more and more in a lot of tighter communities.
Something you're thinking something along the lines of mixed residential commercial development?
Correct. Yep.
Maybe that's the phrase to add to it, is something like that.
Do you want to try putting oh, you're typing it right now.
Done. Awesome.
And you might want to say along Pickard Road, and then you may want to say including uses such as light and industrial or research and development, something like that. We'd want to word it that we want to make it all encompassing. And the reason is that, and we're seeing this in a number of communities where, they're not filling up, especially the older buildings, the retail buildings are not filling up, and there's a lot of demand for alternate uses, which nowadays, as you know, especially with light industrial and R&D, everything's indoors. They don't create noise and odor and things like that. So if the sites are designed properly, they can be very compatible with retail and even residential uses. And what's great is, usually they employ people, and those are the same people that can shop, before work, they go out and eat lunch, shop after work and so forth. So it really does build in an economic generator, so to speak, in addition to people who may live there too. So with the project specific tax increment financing, you may, be involved in some of these projects, looking to encourage some of them along that, the road in that district, just to make sure that, the district remains viable and doesn't go the way you've seen in other communities where they'll have several vacant buildings, one right after the other, and that just discourages investment.
So one last comment on that, if I may. We added or mixed residential commercial, which is just a different land use of sorts. I wonder if that should just be in the later part of that sentence where it says, rather than where it's up front, and say, including uses such as light industrial, research and development, or mixed residential commercial. That might be a better way to include that. I don't know if the board has thoughts on that.
Yeah, that sounds better, I think.
That made sense, Elena?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm just reading through it. I think that does sound better. I agree.
This is Bacon here, and I have a question or a comment.
Mhm.
Could we have a question concerning what the current business owners are primarily? Are they merchandise? Are they services? Are they predominantly tourism related? Questions getting some information on the existing businesses. You don't understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
There isn't really a question. There isn't really I mean, you kind of know, the Holiday Inn is basically hotels are hotels and restaurants are restaurants. But,
Mhm.
I mean, it would give us some breakdown as how many places actually have, items for sale and how many are basically service oriented.
Mhm.
And I don't really see anything like that in the survey at this point. Is that
Mhm.
something that would be coming later? Is it like a follow-up question, starting to break down what
No,
we
I think
currently...
that's a good, right. Yeah, I agree. That would be a good addition to probably the first half of the survey. Something along the lines of what's your primary industry, and have a drop-down selection. And I can grab that from NAICS codes. So your kind of basic industry standard list that you've probably seen on other surveys.
We may, that's great idea. We also may glean from that if restaurants may lean towards certain things as being more important, but service industry might be different versus a retail store, we may see some differences in what their priorities are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that will actually definitely help us in looking at the two districts, because the districts are going to have very different answers to those questions, to that question.
Well, sometimes, like in the past, we even found, with planting trees that, hotels and restaurants like it, but places that actually sell things in the parking lot don't. It's hard to please everybody, but if we get a breakdown of, what the area predominantly is, and, that gives us some valuable information, I guess.
Right.
And how much is tourism related and how much isn't.
Mhm.
But just maybe some questions along that line, I think, need to be added to what we got here. I mean, what you got's really good, but 2 through 8 are kind of about means of communication.
Mhm.
And I just thought maybe we could get getting some feedback on this initial one. And that's just all my comment right there.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
I think that's really good feedback, and I can take like I said, I can take those drop down options from the codes and just make sure you guys are comfortable with that based on the businesses in those districts, that we've kind of hit them all. But I think we can get a general list of those industries and definitely have people select the primary industry they serve. I think
Great.
that's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Excellent. All right. I think we're good with the wording of this question. Good feedback there. Would you be in support of a project for the East District that would undertake shared marketing efforts to raise awareness of the area and attract more investors, developers, and visitors? That's a yes, no, or maybe.
I like the premise of the question, but I see a real high percentage of yeses coming back.
Mhm.
And I was wondering if there's a way we could be more probative in what areas you're looking at, like awareness of the area, investors, developers, and visitors, how we could be more specific in an answer versus just a yes or no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I like the premise, but it seems so broad that I see a lot of people supporting that without a lot of clarity what their particular thoughts might be. That I don't have an answer of how to come up with that question. I'm just raising it as a thought to consider how it could be more probative.
Well, and as Elena could believe me, could talk about in a lot more detail, we've always looked at marketing as more than just, usually communities do tourism marketing. That's the most popular one, but we also are, we tell communities, look, it's all investment, whether it's somebody coming in to spend dollars for tourism, or somebody buying a house, or somebody looking to open a company or business somewhere, or an industry. It's all investment. So marketing, even though it can cover a number of different things, we think that they're all important, especially to the board and to the 2 DDA districts. So, but I agree with you with how do you make it more probative, but that's kind of why we put all of those in there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll think about that a little bit more. And I think, yeah, I'm trying to think of the angles to try and draw out some of the nuanced opinions there that we'll get, or that we should get. And maybe it's an option when we sort of reword this based on that feedback. Maybe it's, an option to provide an open-ended response.
It could be one way to do this might be to list some of the potential types of shared marketing efforts that could be done for a smaller community like this, and then maybe have an answer that simply says no, we don't want any.
Mm-hmm.
And so that gets you you have several potential yes answers that are more specific to what Marty's talking about, and then there's still the opportunity for a no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll likely need some more of your help on that, Rodney, because when you do get into that, we'll need to know what the other organizations are that are involved in those activities, obviously, and we certainly we want to make sure we don't offend them in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, good. We'll give that some thought. And then would you be in support of allocating DDA funding toward the improvement of and promotion for businesses in the East District through activities such as creating shared operating hours and hosting business-focused events? Yes, no, or maybe. Now that's going to be, your typical downtown development authority that you may be aware of that would be handling those operations. That's kind of the angle with that one.
Yeah, and it's important to note that although typically the traditional, you think of the traditional downtown and their DDAs, that they're very involved in these sorts of things, it's becoming more and more important for corridors and corridor business districts to also do this to remain competitive. It's as you know, the market, especially after the pandemic, is going to be changed quite a bit. It's changing already. And we don't totally know what the fallout is, but anything that can be done to help support all of those businesses would be helpful. And you do have the ability to use funds that are captured through the DDAs to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Good. So going back through this, I wanted to find out from the board, if there was something that we wanted to identify specific to the West DDA district, it's probably going to be somewhat similar to the format of the question number 11 here. Since you guys know the area much better than we do, is there something that we could customize for the West DDA survey where we want to get some kind of response about projects and feedback?
I'll say one thing, and it was actually, I was wanting to come back to number 10 to begin with, because I had thought of something else. But one of the features that we have in the East EDA is sidewalks are an integral part of that corridor. And that is just beginning in the West. And I think, you know, how important are sidewalks to the businesses that are there? I don't know that we need to ask that of the East. I'm curious about Rodney's opinion on that, because we got it covered pretty well there. And the other thing that's unique about East and West, besides the density, is lighting also exists on the East side. And we don't really have that kind of lighting in the West, and I don't know that we need it yet, but if it were to fill out, that becomes potentially important. So those are the two thoughts that I had on that.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, the character, at least in my opinion, of the West is much more, how we call it, newer, suburban, you know, nice mix of, you know, residential, office with some, you know, retail in there too, you know, retail, food service. It does have very different characteristic, but it also, you know, we're really leaning on you folks to kind of give us some direction in that area, because that is a case where you know it much better. I mean, we do a lot of work in traditional corridors, like along Pickard and in the East District, but the West is kind of its own unique, especially where DDAs are concerned. It's a very unique situation. So yeah, if you've got ideas on things that additional things that we can ask, please do so.
I think you raise a really interesting point, and it's very accurate the way you described it in my mind, Carmine. And I'm going to follow up on what Brian said right along with that, because it is an interesting situation and it's somewhat broad-based. If you think about the roads that service the West DDA from north to south and east to west, but in that concept, I'm thinking how the broad areas of growth that exist in the West DDA, like commercial, residential, industrial, institutional, how you can try to identify those more specifically in this questionnaire. I think this is a great tool to help lead us in a direction that can give us some real guidance, and particularly your CBI group and guidance, but helping us to design some type of forward-looking planning, which is really, I think, the whole basis of our effort here. And how do the roads and the infrastructure support or fail to support these areas? Where are they lacking? Where are they needing some more, and identifying the undeveloped areas and for the potential growth. And maybe even more importantly than that is identifying the developed or developing areas, which is what I think we're talking about a little bit more here right now. And Brian brought up that point with the sidewalks and the pathways. And I think it extends to infrastructure in a broad sense, and thereby, you know, helping to distinguish the existing growth from the potential growth, even though it may not be developed in a way that it could be, but does it have the potential, or is it just already existing and just needs more infrastructure? I know that's a lot to to think about, but that's the premise of it. I think you hit on, Carmine, and that's where I think the West has a big difference from the East in that regard. And looking forward is really my main focus, and how to do that and how to write questions about it is a lot more difficult than it is to bring up the idea.
It would also be a good opportunity for us to look at the master plan to see what's been planned for that area, and how the things that you just mentioned would be integrated in, in with the future plans, future land uses for that area too.
Good. So then I think what we'd probably want to do, Carmen and I probably, like you said, Carmen, look at the future land uses, come up with some ideas for a question or two specific to West EDA. Do you think that at this point you would need any information additionally from this group to be able to provide a question option for that West district?
Well, and here, Rodney, maybe you can chime in on this. Maybe what we can do is come up with some questions, a question or two together that would apply, and then get it out to the, email it out to all the board members just to get some feedback on it so we can keep things moving along. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'd certainly be happy to send out an email, and just individually, each of you could simply email me back with your thoughts on what we have. That's certainly an option for us in between the meetings.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, that way I just figured we wouldn't have to wait for another meeting to get the question okayed, and we can.
Yeah.
And now obviously we're going to talk about dissemination of the survey and
Right.
and that sort of thing.
Yep. Yeah. Good. So I think so you guys know, like I said earlier, the way that I would probably put this together to start with is through SurveyMonkey, and we would have those two separate surveys. The thing that we need to keep in mind is if we're going to have the two separate surveys, we want to make sure that we are reaching the right people in those districts so they get the right survey. And we talked about that a little bit this morning, Carmen and I. One option is to, of course, there's a couple options, but posting it on the website, of course. And then if we do have a list, and this is what I was going to ask this group, what kind of contact information that we currently have for businesses within those two districts, where we can do a postcard direct mail send with a link or QR code and further information about the survey. Do we have that contact information for folks, or for business owners, I should say?
I would think that our assessing department ought to be able to assist on that. Is that reasonable, Rodney?
Yeah, certainly for the properties in the district, we can send to the property owners. If a business has personal property tax, then we would have that information as well. But not many of the businesses would have that. But at least that as I said, from a property perspective point of view, we would have owners' addresses.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of leased property, I'm sure.
Now, now there is another option that could be used. I haven't looked into it at all, but we have bulk mail, and bulk mail basically sends to everybody. Every address would get a postcard. The challenge would be identifying the right districts, the right boundaries, essentially, because bulk mail goes by postal route information, and so we may have postal routes that include both city and township, for example, or include broad areas outside of the district. So I think the first step on the bulk mail side would be to go to the post office site and look up or get the information on where all the routes are, and see if that would be a feasible option.
And that would be to all businesses, all residents?
It would, well, if we did bulk mail, it would go to all, I believe, it basically would go to all addresses within the boundaries of that U.S. Postal Service route.
Postal
So,
code. Okay.
so, you know, it would go to, just go to everybody. Some people may not be in the DDA district, but hopefully they'll be close. As I said, the challenge could be, in some cases, you can get a postal route that includes broad areas, you know, outside of the district we're looking at, including places in the city, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So the first step would be to identify if the routes that exist right now would be suitable for that. But that would get every address. You know, so that's the difference from the assessor's database.
Well, isn't our goal though to get it out primarily to businesses?
Well, our districts are primarily businesses. I mean, there are certainly some residences in them, but anyway, we do not have a separate list of all the businesses and their addresses. There's not a database for that I currently have access to.
Yeah, and even though it's a little bit overkill and it's kind of a little bit of a shotgun effect, it would have the result of actually reaching the business owner versus the property owner, which is what the assessing list would give us.
Mm-hmm. True. And with that, that's when you're thinking about bulk mail, we're thinking about the postcard option with the link or QR code to the survey, not necessarily sending out the survey itself in a paper format with a paid postage to send it back. I'm assuming that would be very expensive.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
so just the postcard.
And we're looking to do the postcard to invite them to go online and take the survey, correct?
Right. That's what I'm talking about now. I mean, there is the option of sending out a paper survey. If we wanted to do that, I think from an analytic perspective, that would pose some challenges because we will have the online survey in addition to the paper survey, but it's that's not a huge deal. It's just something that should be brought up. But the postcard to invite to, with an invitation to take the survey can also have a QR code. And most smartphones do have a QR reader built in.
One other thing I would suggest, I've done both surveys and I've always found the paper ones to be really cumbersome. The Survey Monkey works really well, and you don't have to worry about taking the time to mail it in, and it can be done very quickly. The other thing I would suggest too is it's in terms of getting people to actually take the survey is like if each board member and maybe each person on the township board, picks 8 or 10 people that are in business to call and encourage them, to take the survey. Or maybe we wait until we see, the first week who has taken it, so we don't call people that haven't. I think it's a lot more inviting when somebody gets a call from a friend, a business acquaintance saying, hey, would you mind taking this for us? Versus either getting a call from us or even the card, which is helpful, but they may not see it in some cases. So you just have a much better result, I found, when people who are on the boards reach out to people that they know that in this case would, actually run businesses, own businesses.
Good. Thank you, Carmen. Yeah, I think that's good. I'll include that in the list.
I would recommend that you have on the postcard a link that for those that don't have or understand what the QR code is. And when you're looking at the link, we're going to need to keep it as simple as we possibly can. It's straightforward, something real clear and easy that they can go, oh, that's where I go. Something easy to remember to type in and that sort of thing, rather than a long code to get to it. So.
Yeah, and we can customize it so that it's just surveymonkey.com and then /. It's going to be customized, probably r/Union Township survey. So we can simplify it pretty well. So the link is there. Yeah, we can definitely do that. The other option, of course, is to ask the Mount Pleasant Area Chamber of Commerce to send 2 emails with links to members, and we provide the language. How do you guys feel about that option? Do you think that would result in additional surveys? Pros, cons?
I don't know if they have a list outside of their own membership, because there's a lot of businesses that don't join that.
Mhm. Yeah, so do you guys have, let's see, I could probably check their website, but see how many members they have.
And the main challenge you're going to have there is as I said, you're going to have a lot of businesses that are in the city or elsewhere. I'm not sure if they have any ability to differentiate in that regard.
Right. Okay. And the other option too is to send a press release to the Morning Sun newspaper, inviting people to take the survey. Now that's, you know, we're going to want to be really clear that this is a survey for business owners or, you know, partners, things like that. So, you know, a resident, I don't think it would be a horrible thing if a resident filled it out. It's just, you know, the aim is to get feedback from the business districts. So we can do that as long as we're clear within the press release which link goes to which district. That can be a little bit cumbersome because if we feel the need to identify which is the east, which is the west, you know, we might want to include directional information as to the, you know, the roads, the main roads that border those districts possibly. So
What if we had I do like the idea of a press release. There's value in it. What if we had that, rather than having the link information to the surveys in the press release? What if we had simply directed them to, say, the township website or something? At least they have to take a step, you know, to go, and on the website, we, you know, whatever web page we give them, that's where they would find the link. If you're in this area, do this one. If you're in this area, do that one. So at least we require them to take a step, you know, to if they really want it, they're going to go looking for it.
good. Yeah, I think that would be good. Yep.
Yeah, that
That's
sounds
a good
like
way
a
to
good
do it.
idea.
I agree. Good call.
I'm going to throw out a crazy idea,
Mhm.
and I really check myself whether I should throw it out. But sometimes when you're brainstorming, right? I mean, Google Maps or whatever map program you use, you can drive, essentially virtual drive down the street and take your time and actually create a list. Our districts aren't that big. You could create a list of these businesses. You would miss some where it's like an office and you might have 8 businesses in an office complex, but you could get a pretty good listing from that, I would think. Like I said, it was a little crazy, a little labor intense too.
You know, actually, along that line, I'm not sure I like, because I know who's going to be doing the driving, Brian, but but along that line, Carmen or Elena, this is not a question I know the answer to, but are there private lists available that might get us where we want to go? Private companies that have collected this information and can narrow it down to exactly what we want.
That's a very good question. And I can tell you that we can buy an email list. The price for an email list would be different from a contact list for that company. That's a good question, though. That's worth looking into, because even if we had the email list, we would be able to, you know, provide a direct mail to those folks with the survey right within their email. The full address, you know, if we're going to be sending them direct mail, that's a good question. We can look into that and find out if we can buy a list like that. Yeah, let's look into that. I will look into that.
Okay.
Good. The other question with that is, how recent is that data? That would be, we probably have to be ready to know that, you're going to have a 20% margin of error, so to speak, because of, many things that happened this year, or I should say last year. So there might be a higher margin of error when it comes to addresses, potential vacancies, things like that. But yeah, that's definitely worth looking into. Good idea. Good. The other thing here was just to send the survey and have a Dropbox in town hall. Again, I think the way that we're heading is probably just keep it simple, do the online option, and not necessarily send the 2 or 3 page mail out unless you think that's a viable option. Again, we'd need the addresses for those folks as well. So that could be combined with some of the other, once we look into that option, Rodney, that you brought up, we can explore this, but we also want to keep in mind budget. If we have a budget for this, great. If we if we don't, we want to be aware of that as well.
It does seem to me that the scope, the broader the scope for response, the better, as far as the target group that we're trying to reach. And that somehow maybe there would be a measure of what kind of response we were getting before the time frame was met, or before we ended our time frame, and find a way to maybe access those that were not participating for whatever reason.
Yes,
Yeah,
I see what you're saying. So basically attempt to do the easy stuff, so to speak, the social media, the websites, the postcard, attempt to do all of those, and then see where we are after maybe 3.5 weeks to a month. Compare based on the contact information that we receive from them, and identify, okay, we are at a point where, we need to do more activity to promote the survey. Let's go to option B and C. So yeah, we can, I can kind of structure this in such a way where we would identify those strategies and sort of the level of those, kind of based on low response rate.
Yeah,
And
and hopefully we get a high response and we don't have a lot of follow-up, but at least we would have some measure. And then I would think that the more detailed, labor-intensive follow-up would maybe hopefully not be as many people to contact.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and honestly, what I've seen in past work that we've performed with other clients is, for business surveys like this, we do see a fairly low response rate when it comes to just sending out emails through a chamber of commerce. That's what we've done in the past with Flint Township. We had enough to kind of go on, so to speak. I think we had 30 completions, and that district is fairly large, but that was enough for them to get enough feedback to move forward. It wasn't a DDA plan, but it was something similar. So I think we're probably going to see a fairly low response rate at first, and I think those invitations, the calls, things like that, just kind of poking people a little bit to take that survey will help.
Yeah, I do too.
Mm-hmm. Especially when we have, the press release in the newspaper, and we're explaining to folks, the aim for the survey, why we need your feedback, why it's important, how you can affect the future of Union Township in those districts, and really make it, a call to action that gets them where they live, so to speak, so we can do that. Good. So I'll go ahead and sort of prioritize some of these options for dissemination. Like you said, sort of provide kind of a phased, approach in that sense, where we kind of do the easy online stuff first, wait a few weeks, and then move into the phase where we look at purchasing lists, sending these out, that type of thing. So we can kind of have a more structured approach to how to disseminate the survey. I think that's a good way to go. All right. And I think that's it. I don't think we had any other questions. The only thing I wanted to check in with you guys on is just to see if we can get a clear map with those roads listed, the ones that we have. I'm missing some of the road names, so that will help for folks identifying where they are in the districts.
Yeah, our GIS specialist is working on an updated map, so we'll
Awesome.
have that available.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Great. All right. Good. Did we have anything else? Carmen, was there anything else that you wanted to discuss tonight, get feedback on?
Nope, I think we're all set. And just one final statement, this coming Sunday, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Been a long time coming.
Yep. I'm from upstate New York originally, and I'm pretty much a lifelong Bills fan. So, half of my wardrobe is Bills clothing. You can see behind me probably a Bills helmet up on the thing there.
Oh, yeah.
Autographed by Josh Allen, and yeah, I've got the whole thing. So I'm funny stuff. Hey, in the pandemic, yeah, I got to have something to root for and cheer for.
That'll give us something to root for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I would wear Bill's clothing, but he's not my size.
Great. Well, is there anything else before we get to work here on the updates for the survey? Is anybody raising their hand?
Tom, I see you have your hand up.
Yes. What's our goal, our time frame for getting the survey out? Are we going to have another meeting between to review this dissemination strategy? What are you thinking?
Yeah, so I think what I'll do is provide you guys with a more tighter kind of strategy here, rather than just bullet items. I'll provide sort of a plan, so to speak. And then what I can do, we can either do it through a meeting, or we can do it over email. I think I'll sort of leave it up to you guys. I think we can probably take care of that over email. I don't think we would need another meeting to discuss it. And then for timing, I would say once we sort of have our strategy down and have the questions approved, which could be within the next 2 or 3 weeks, then we can start the machine. I would say mid-February. How does that sound?
Yeah,
sounds pretty efficient.
Okay, good.
So the only downside to the email format is, there's not, you as an EDA board will not be making any group decisions. What would happen is Elena and Carmen would provide me with whatever they want me to send out. I would send it out to you, and you individually would send back your thoughts on the specific items that she's kind of raising to say, what do you think of this? The key thing in this is that we do not want to have discussion outside of a public meeting. So it would literally be, you take a look at it and you give me a response back, which I simply share that response back to the consultants. If you like to have the opportunity, this discussion was good. I thought there was very good comments, and often hearing what other people have to say raises new thoughts that add to it. If you would like to have a special meeting in between, we certainly can set one up. And so I guess that's a question for you as a board. If you would like to meet in a couple of weeks and go over the updated questions, certainly let me know, and I'm happy to make that arrangement.
Well, I would think it's worth considering because this is so important, and if we can disseminate this and get it down to a tighter survey, and we have any details like were brought up tonight that could be tweaked and brought to a further refinement, I don't see why it wouldn't be a good idea to set up a meeting. And if we can get a quorum, then we're able to follow through on it. I don't see the harm in it at this point. I only see a lot of benefit. That's my feeling.
Yeah, that works just fine for us as well. Would that be, you know, a special meeting that we would be having, or would it be the typical, the scheduled EDA?
Well, if we were to do a meeting just to review your updated information, updated survey and dissemination plans, we would do it as a special meeting. That would be the only item on the agenda.
Okay.
And what we would do, if the board is interested in this, what we would do is send out what we've done in the past is use a doodle poll format to
Got it.
identify meeting times when we can get a quorum.
Okay.
And as I said, it would be a meeting just for the purpose of discussing these items.
Got it. Yeah, that's fine. I think that's valid. I agree that could be very worthwhile. And then instead of a bunch of emails back and forth, I think that would be efficient.
Other thoughts on that?
So I would think, yeah, go ahead.
I was
This
just saying,
is Tom. I mean, I'm just not seeing our success rate with our meetings attendance. And another special meeting, if we're going to do anything, it almost has to be the next regular meeting in order to have attendance. Overall, I mean, we hired CIB, they're the experts. I mean, the dissemination, I like the survey just the way it was, but I like the other ads. But I think this kind of survey needs to be fairly generic because, and separate. We need one for the east and we need one for the west. But the west is, however, an infant DDA, where the east is a mature DDA. The businesses are there. They're set up. So I'm struggling with who our target audience is with the survey. I believe the landowner is as important as the business owner, especially in the West, because it's a vacant field owned by developers that they need. There's not a business there yet. But at the same time, they're all thinking, trust me, every landowner in our vacant fields within these districts, I mean, their minds are ticking all the time as what kind of business they can sell to, rent to, develop. I think the generic overall approach, keeping the survey brief. I mean, my experience has been in the past, it's tough to get participation from the business owners, the landowners, the principals. I mean, when it's the only time you ever hear from them is when they're ticked off about something. Then they come to our meeting. You know, and that's maybe 3 and 10 years. So I'm real curious to see what our response level is going to be. But I'm all about it, like what Rodney was saying, the postcard thing, then send them to the Union Township website makes the most sense. Then they click on that, they go to a map we provide them so they can see where, if their land is indeed in that East District or West District. I think it's going to, the press release is an excellent idea in the Morning Sun, and then we do another paid ad in there with the website and the survey, and we go from there. I mean, I think we're on a roll here. I'd just like to keep this going. I don't want to mire it down and, you know, are we putting a light pole on this corner? Or I think even with Brian's and Marty's sidewalk idea. I mean, to me, it's covered. They have in the one question, the bicycle lanes, paved paths, non-motorized transportation facilities. I mean, that's like, to me, I don't think you can describe it any better. But I just like to see us get this out and going. Maybe let's just leave it up to CIB and Rodney on their progress. If they feel the need to have a special meeting between now and the next regular one, let them advise us.
Right, right.
Bacon, I have one question.
Go ahead.
If it's a special meeting and we don't have to vote on anything, do we need a quorum?
We do. Yep.
We do. Okay.
Yeah, if you don't have a quorum, the only thing you can do is open the meeting and close it.
Okay. Well, I knew you couldn't vote on anything, but I wondered if you could have an informational one. Okay. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. I mean, if you didn't have to, then anybody who wanted to could make it, and if they didn't, they wouldn't.
Right. So I guess maybe the question, as Tom said, if you're comfortable with the direction that you've given to the consultants tonight, and you're comfortable with the details being worked out with staff and the consultant, that's certainly an option as well. If you're, like I said, we're really looking here for your consensus, or even a motion if you wanted to give direction as to what you prefer.
Well, I'm comfortable with that information because I think if you add any more, you may not get the results that you want. So keep it simple has always been my method.
I'll second that. The sun's going down in Florida here pretty soon, so
Yeah, and I'll just chime in too. I'm comfortable with the general direction that we've been discussing. I think the survey is really close, and we did some minor tweaks to it. My biggest question is the dissemination of it, and we may find that we go down a certain path and have to back up and go down a different path depending on what we're going to see as a successful way to do that. I mean, there was lots of ideas on that, but I'm very comfortable with allowing CIB to kind of take the lead on that. They've heard our input.
yeah, I agree.
So can we call this consensus of the board members present to instruct staff and CIB to proceed to continue with a couple of the tweaks we added? How's that sound to everybody?
Great.
Good.
That's what I'd be leaning to. Yes, let's just go forward.
You too.
Tom,
Yeah,
can I jump in with a question?
go ahead.
So I guess looking at staff and CIB, do you feel comfortable with what you're hearing from us, that the direction is clear enough?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And like I said, I will go ahead and look into some of the options as we talked about with regard to like list purchasing. And I will provide some feedback into that or about that, the cost and associated fees and things like that. So I can provide that information in addition to some of the other information that we talked about with regard to dissemination. Yes. I can get on that pretty quickly and then provide that sort of, like I said, strategy, and then we can start the engines after those tweaks are made.
Good.
Great.
I like it.
Thank you. All right. All right. Well, thanks so much for your feedback. I really appreciate that. I think we got some good discussion going, and I think the tweaks that we made are important. So I think we're going to get some good feedback, and you know, like I said, we're probably going to see. Don't be surprised if we see a low rate of completion to begin with. So yeah, we'll do our best to get those responses, and it's going to take more than just one push. I will say that people need to be reminded.
Okay. I'd like to thank CIB for being here in this presentation, very informational. I like the survey just the way you have it. I mean, I think we're making some progress here. I think do you have anything else, Rodney?
The only thing I have under director comments is just a note that the lighting has been installed underneath the overpass at US 127. So feel free to drive by and admire it. Anyway, that project is at this point is done.
Good, good.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Any other comments for the good of the order? And hearing none, I guess we can call this meeting adjourned at 6:01. And the next regular meeting scheduled is Tuesday, February 16th. So I look forward to hearing from everybody there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
You, good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.